Hey folks, this is Pat Campolattano with Yamaha Guitar Group in Calabasas, California. I work for Yamaha Guitar Development, which is the custom shop in Los Angeles. And I'm here today with Jeff Schroeder with Smashing Pumpkins and Night Dreamer, amongst many other accolades. And what we're doing today is we're just doing a little live check-in with one of our favorite artists, person that we've collaborated with many guitars ago.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So yeah, hey Jeff, how's it going, man?
Not bad. I'm happy to be here, and I mean, what an amazing thing that we can actually be talking like this, and very thankful for technology to keep us connected. And so, yeah, just been hanging out, and just using the time to practice a lot of guitar. Ton of guitar actually, and write a lot of music and record. And yeah, so I mean, although I'm a musician and being on stage is kind of one of the greatest things that we get to do, it's I'm still lucky that I'm able to be productive still and work and hang
Yeah,
out. Yeah.
technology has definitely changed our lives, right? I mean, I can imagine if we were in this situation even a decade ago, it would be a lot different. And thankfully for us, there's three of us builders in the shop. We've been busy doing, 3D design work and kind of making all our preparations for when we get back in the, in the shop. And yeah, it's really cool to like talk with our artists. So I've just been calling up some folks and saying, hey, what's up?
Yeah.
Over the years, we become friends. It's like we're definitely here to serve you guys and to make the best guitars we can for our artists. But over the years of working together, we end up getting to know each other, getting lots of lunches and talking about custom guitars and stuff. So
Sure.
it's nice. It's Yamaha's been a really great family. To me as an employee and to our artists, I feel like we're all just kind of one big family when it comes to that. So yeah, we're trying to check in and see like what's going on with your instruments. Are your instruments holding up? What's going on with your writing or with your recording? Are you in the studio or are you like recording at home? There's like so many questions, and folks ask questions in the live stream, in the live chat here on the right, and I'll post them up here. So yeah, so what's going on?
I guess, yeah, we'll kind of start top down. Obviously this was supposed to be a kind of semi busy year with the Pumpkins. Not a ton of stuff, but we had some really cool things planned. One was we were supposed to play some festivals in actually maybe tonight we were supposed to be playing at Shaky Knees in Atlanta, or tomorrow night. I think, but obviously that got postponed. So those shows have been postponed to the fall. And then in July, we were supposed to be playing some shows with Guns N' Roses, which is like, total dream come true. If you would ask me, I know, I hate, even though is cheesy as this sounds, like if, when you say like, if you would have asked 8th grade, 9th grade me, I started high school in 1988 and, that summer Guns N' Roses kind of exploded. If you would have said, hey, someday you're going to be playing some baseball stadiums with Guns N' Roses, I don't think I'd ever believe you, but we don't know. I mean, we haven't heard. Yeah, we haven't. There's been no official word on when those shows will happen, or if they will, or if not. I mean, we can't even conjecture. Everything is day by day. But we're we're remaining positive, and so we have some shows rescheduled for the fall. Billy has kind of already started working on another new album. We have actually 20 new songs coming out this year that we just finished kind of right before this all started. That finished. And then, so he's taking the time to kind of get the ball rolling on even another album. So once we can all get together and work on that, I think, we'll try to, even do some more music since there's some time.
Yeah.
But so, like I said, so then, so Pumpkins, there's that, you know, there will be a new album, 20 new songs some point at sometime this year. I'm not exactly sure. I mean, like I said, there's so many things that are up in the air that, you know, the industry's kind of a little bit waiting to see what's going to take place. And then on to Night Dreamer. We have just been working on some new songs, and so we've
Cool.
recorded and mixed and mastered actually 2 new songs with I'm not going to say with who we've been working, but with, you know, for us, a very special third kind of collaborator.
Cool, yeah.
And so we'll make an announcement about that in a couple weeks, hopefully, once we have some more details set in stone. But
I want to ask questions about, it's like, oh, is it a drummer? Is it you know?
No, more of a producer, but
Okay.
he did play some stuff too. But someone who's a hero to me, and so I'm really excited about that. And the songs so far that we've have come out really great, and you know, that's kind of a continuation of what we've been doing, a little bit different. I feel like kind of a different feel to them, but also like not a complete departure. So, and both tracks so far predominantly feature the new Pacifica that you built for me. So I don't, yeah, I'm trying to think there's maybe, you know, I ended up using like a couple other guitars just for some like light overdubs, just because once you build up a track with one guitar, you kind of you just need some tonal variation just because frequencies, just separation of frequencies. But so we did that. Yeah, we actually have another kind of release that we just finished too, that collaboration with a hypnotherapist. So a good friend of mine is a certified hypnotherapist, and I know, you know, people have a lot of misconceptions about what hypnotherapy is. They think it's like you're going to get hypnotized and pass out, but it's it's almost like a form of guided meditation. And it's, you know, and like I said, my friend is a certified hypnotherapist, and I thought, you know, it would be during this time, it'd be like a good idea to be able to give something people might be able to find useful. And plus it's just a lot of fun. And so something that we could do remotely, to where he could send me the kind of the talking. I was able to add some stuff, then I would send it off to Mindy and she would add her thing. And so it was completely done remotely without any of us ever being in a room together, which is amazing. And, you know, and actually for that fact, with the new Night Dreamer stuff, we've done it completely remotely as well, where everybody.
That's cool.
Which is, you know, it's really actually hasn't been that hard. And it's been, you know, in some ways almost made things go faster. I don't know. I mean,
you know, when you said that, it made me think of, I took this course when I went to Berkeley, right? And interdisciplinary collaboration art, right?
Yeah.
You know, big crazy title, but it was about kind of like mixing different styles of art with music.
Sure.
Because you often see, you know, music and dance, or music and, you know, a visual, like, you know, like a movie or a cartoon or whatever it is. But what I did for a project is I made like a, you know, like a screensaver that kind of shape shifts and stuff.
Sure.
My roommate at the time was a really good you know, programmer, and we ended up making kind of like a shifting screensaver type thing that with the music would change its patterns, and it brought that. So that's really cool. I would have loved to, you know, I can't wait to hear it. You know, have some sort of hypnosis. I mean, music itself is a hypnosis of sorts. Like you know, a pumpkin show or a Night Dreamer show, you're transported somehow. So
you know, and you know, actually after working on the tracks, you know, the other day, you know, because you know, it's some of the best time to kind of enter the hypnotic state is right when you just wake up, or right when you're about to go to bed, because it's kind of more about your mind kind of going into a like kind of one layer in. You know, my friend Jamie, who we did with, when it comes out in a couple of weeks, he'll do a little more explaining about it. But and I actually you know, listened to them, and they're pretty effective, you know, and and so like there's four guided tracks, and they're about different address different topics. One is for kind of building your natural immunity. One is for kind of working on things in your life that you'd like to change, and yeah, just some different, very general. And I mean, I think it sounds weirder than it is. It's really not that weird. You know what I mean? And if you talk to someone who's trained in this field, we actually enter the hypnotic state many times throughout the day, whether we're watching TV or like you said, listening to music. So it just is a way to kind of get your mind kind of pointed in a certain direction. It's not any type of weird manipulation or anything.
No, I don't think it's weird at all. I think it's just really interesting. I mean, one of the things you know, I always want to do is just learn more about stuff. So, you know, you got me down the guitar road, right? So it's really interesting to hear people come at things from a different perspective, and you know, as much as like you've probably heard of like people do like a sound bath or something like that, or
sure.
So it's like you're just kind of going in your own direction in that hypnosis space, but that's really cool. I can't wait to hear it. I'd love to be put in a trance or something like that.
Yeah, and you know, the kind of the music that you have to do for that is very kind of specific, because when you're actually listening, you're listening to the voice. You want to make sure that you're doing things that help transport the listener, but not distract the listener into something else. So it tends to be, you got to get your Brian Eno, Robert Fripp type of hat on. And, you know, so I definitely stole a lot of tricks out of the Brian Eno handbook of ambient music, you know, so, but to me, I'm a big fan of that stuff. So it was a kind of real interesting, practical way to be able to incorporate some of those kind of more fringe things that I was, you know, interested in.
Yeah. Well, it's like every kind of music, I guess. They bring up a certain type of feeling, right? So this is just kind of pushing it that one step further. And it's pretty rad. So what have been like your go-to guitars since you've
been? Yeah, I got it. I have it right here. I had it right next to me. This this has been my primary since the day I opened the case, you know, either this one or the white one. The white one I have at home, you know, and I play that.
So where
I'm actually in Anaheim, Nitro, where we rented a rehearsal, like a studio lockout space.
Cool.
So we would have a place to write our new music and we had a bunch of shows that we needed to rehearse for. So we ended up getting a lockout for a couple months. But then obviously that was right before all this stuff happened. And so I've been coming here to work, and anyway, because so I've been making use of this space. But yeah, so I leave this guitar, and it's been my primary guitar, you know. And it's funny because I got this guitar right before we went to Korea to play those shows, and I was like, oh man, like should I take it, you know, because I don't really, you know, I only had a chance to do like one rehearsal with it, and I just you know what, yeah, screw it, I'm gonna take it. And I basically, it's been, you know, I basically sleep with this guitar. And it's just really kind of, for me, like where I'm at as a player, as a personally, it kind of does everything that I'd ever want. And it just, I mean, looks great, sounds great, plays amazing. I think when did I get that? That was like end of October, I think, right?
Yeah, something like that. So
no, I think it's maybe the end of November. I think towards the end of November. Yeah, it is the end of November, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
And I think during from flying to Korea, coming back, being all over, basically all the way around the world with this thing once, I think I've adjusted the neck like once, like a tiny,
Oh, yeah.
like a tiny bit. I mean, I never even have to touch it. I don't ever have to.
Yeah.
Adjust it. So you may want to tell people more about like what you did with this
Yeah, yeah.
To give it that stability, since why should I tell them when you're here too?
You know what? It's better coming from you most of the time because it doesn't look like I'm trying to sell it or something like that. These guitars came out of collaboration that I've made Jeff a lot of guitars, or over the years, and really you've been a really instrumental part of our development for new products and stuff, with Revstar, with Pacifica, and some other stuff that we've been working on. And one of your requests was you wanted a guitar with a Floyd and 24 frets. So currently, the guitar that has that is the RGX 420. You have that black one, right? And
I do. Yeah.
But you talked about you wanted a certain neck shape, and you wanted the sustainer put in there, right? And some other.
This is actually the Sustainiac.
Those guys have been really great. Alan Cooper, who has helped me out quite a bit with it. It's been great. So those guitars, they have maple necks that are quite thin, and they have the carbon fiber stripes, embedded underneath the fingerboard.
Which you see on the back. There's actually, it's just, I don't know, what's solid. Yeah, one solid piece. Yeah.
Yep, it's just a one piece maple. What I do is actually I chop the fingerboard off of the same block, so it's like they glue back on. It looks like a nice one piece neck when it's all back together. And it's just got a compound radius, stainless steel frets, Goto locking tuners, even though it's the locking, it's the Floyd Rose original hot rod bridge, basswood bodies, the white one and this one. And actually we're building two more right now. And those are pretty cool. Those will have alder bodies though. And boards and different colors. So, one of the things that you and I, have worked on with Raphael, our painter.
Yeah, I don't think, I can tell through the computer, you don't really get what this guitar actually looks like. It looks more red here, but it's actually, you can see it in the dark.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's not side dots, and we had those pickups wound for you. Those are the Duncan Hunter. Actually NJ from the custom shop wound those.
And they sound great. They're that I always really loved George Lynch's tone on that Underlocking Key album, and I think that's kind of the era of pickup, of his tone, because his tone has actually changed quite a bit over the years, but that's considered one of his benchmark tones. And what's strange is I think this is, for this, it's a ceramic pickup, which isn't normally what I would go for, but I think in this kind of guitar with there's, it kind of works, what I mean? Because the pickup, because obviously having a Floyd type of tremolo and the locking nut, it's not whether it's, better, worse, whatever. It's just different. Every type of device, as and has its pluses and minuses, and so it's a certain sound that just the design in general has. I think that obviously guys back then, when that became kind of the norm for those types of players, they went on a search for the right type of pickup to kind of give the guitar back maybe some of the things it loses by being able to stay in tune and do all the
like a ceramic
gags.
Doesn't have the string pull like an Alnico magnet has, right? But that Sustainiac pickup has some string pull, so it's like you're balancing it out a little bit. And sonically, I can't speak for it.
I'm gonna see if I can get this.
Your playing is, we don't even have to. go on
a little bit better.
about how good you are.
No.
You make the guitar sound good. It's not that the guitar itself sounds good. It's
No, but in all honesty, it's like the guitar, it's a two-way street, because if the guitar isn't giving you what you want or isn't performing the way you want it to perform, it starts becoming a distraction. Like while you're playing, you start thinking like, oh, I really wish that my hand didn't feel that way on that part of the neck, or when I go up here, why is my hand hitting the bottom of this? Because I have pretty big hands. And so like things like that would always bug me. And
yeah,
where this guitar, it has so many of these kind of modern features, which have really become part of like kind of the lexicon of contemporary guitar making. I think if people are making like a modern guitar that's not kind of a vintage spec type of thing, and this isn't the case for, I mean, obviously there's a lot of gray area too, but but this is very much a modern guitar in that, even though it's like has a lot of 80s features, I think it has a lot of things that weren't there in these. Like, you may want to talk about like kind of like this kind of contours of the neck and the neck joint and that kind of stuff, are things that now are pretty, these are part of the kind of the language of contemporary guitar making and things like this, I mean, but
there are different schools, right? There's like the really vintage group, and then there's like the very modern group, and then there's guys that are in between. I always think, I have two rules when I make a guitar. One is my job is to essentially make the guitar disappear for you. I want your brain to come out of a speaker cone, so as much the guitar as comfortable as possible, so you can relay your ideas through your music, through how you play, and just reduce all the impediments to your playing. That's my first goal. And then the second part is a little bit more about how it looks, and you have to realize that an instrument is like clothes. You put it on, and you're in front of all the hands. You're in front of all the people that you want to impress, or that you're trying to show, like put on a great show, and it has to look cool. So those are the two big parts. It has to play, sound, feel great. Those are kind of the table stakes, and then it really has to look great from a distance. Obviously, that guitar you can see from.
Can't miss it. Yeah, can't miss it. It makes a statement.
Yeah.
No, and that's just that is really and that is harder to do than I think, as as a designer, harder to get the best of both worlds is really hard, because there's certain things about certain types of shapes and woods and stuff that make a guitar really sound great, but make it maybe not so easy to play standing up, or things like that. So
sitting down, something hurts your forearm or something, or whatever it is. So, like there's lots of little nuances for all these different designs. And
I have to say, this guitar in particular, and I think this is over. Like I said, I think we've had a relationship now of working on guitars together for 5 or 6 years now, to where a lot, and trying new things and different things that are available, to me as a player, I think this hits the perfect combination, like to me, of like ergonomically, where I like, wow, this guitar is very comfortable to play when it's either sitting down or standing on stage. The way it falls against the body, the way the angle of the guitar across the body, and the neck angle, all those kind of things really have come together. Kind of the weight distribution and all that stuff. I mean, it's like it's you would think that after all these years, I mean, there's information out there for sure, and there's certain things that work, and but as even adding like one new thing can throw that stew out of whack a little bit, and you're like, it's a little too salty now, or something.
Well, it's like music, man. It's like you never stop learning, you never stop inventing, you never stop making a new sound, right? There's so many different varieties of music, and that just goes into craft. Really what making a guitar is you're a carpenter, sculptor, and together. So like the design of your guitar is based on a previous 24 fret Pacifica model that we used to make, but it had different contours and different curves and stuff. And we took that input from you and we said, okay, you know, you want the heel scooped out, you want the forearm contour based on some, you know, Namsho guitars that I made a couple of years back.
Yeah.
The pickguard is kind of based on what the new BB bass pickguard is, right? So we're just kind of like taking all this input from the artist, and you know, we're trying to port that over to the products, and really we take a lot of that information from the artist to heart, and it ends up going, you know, like I relate it to like a Formula One team.
Which you have the proper shirt on today.
Oh yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe that's motorcycle racing. Actually, right?
You know what? It's like a MotoGP team, right? So it is, and you know, we call it a racing team. You think of, you know, a racing team. Not all the consumers get to drive the race car, right? But the technology that goes into the race car ends up working its way down to the car that you can buy at your local dealership. And that's what we're doing with like pickups, or what we're doing with, you know, some design elements. And it's a really big part of how we develop the products, is working closely with guys like you that do hundreds of dates a year and really, you know, can beat up an instrument and give us an accelerated kind of timeline and feedback on how we did. You know, if we make a guitar and we made a mistake, like, you'll be able to tell us a lot quicker, you know, because you play it every night, and you know, like, hey, this is not staying in tune, or this bridge doesn't work, or hey, I know when I do this, it maybe bothers my hand, or whatever the myriad of things are. And everybody's different height, different, like you said, the size of your hands. All those things come into play. So we're always trying to find, like, what's the best neck shape? What's the best balance? What's, you know, we're always trying to change and make adjustments. And I think that's one of the great things about Yamaha is, you know, we have a really cool history, very old history compared to some other, you know, brands out there in the world. But Yamaha's been around for well over 130 years now. So we've had all this great history, but we're always looking towards the future and trying to build, you know, what's next. And
no, I really do like, you know, and that's something that, you know, people may not, you know, if you're just kind of maybe on the outside looking in, that you wouldn't get some of, you know, the kind of more like the process oriented type of ideas that a company like Yamaha has. And what I really working with the company now for so many years, and really becoming a part of the kind of the process of, you know, of kind of working on guitars together, or it's really how, you know, their primary concern really is looking towards the future. You know, what's the next type of thing we can build? And certainly if there's useful information from the past to bring in, like, but it's never about kind of repackaging and recreating the past. You know, very little of that. You know what I mean? There's very little of it. It's mostly about what can we take and what can we make in the future. And I really like that, you know, because like I said, even though this is a certain nod to the past, but it's really, you wouldn't have been able to buy a guitar like this, you know, at that time. Like, there's certainly features on it that absolutely were not available, and ones that are actually pretty significant details, I would have to say. Like, I don't know when, you know, the first guitars with stainless steel frets were.
Well, I mean, Yamaha actually did stainless steel frets a while back, which is pretty wild. I didn't realize until, you know, I started talking with some of my cohorts from Japan.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just not become mainstream, and especially because it's tough on tools and it's hard to work with for a lot of folks. But now it's become all the rage, and you see a lot of like torrefied woods and stuff. But Yamaha has this ARE, you know, acoustic enhancement, which is like an aging process that we do for the wood that, you not only includes heat and humidity, but pressure. And we developed this like specialized chamber that actually makes the wood, crystallize the resin inside of the wood, and it will darken the wood a little bit, but maybe not as dark as some things that you might see out there on the market today. And we feel like, oh, that really helps enhance. And we do that for like acoustic guitar tops. We do it for necks and bodies for, some of the signature models and stuff like that.
Yeah.
We're always,
and I've played a lot of those acoustics live on stage, and it's amazing.
yeah. So we got a couple of questions here. So let's,
Sure.
I'll pop some of these up on the screen. So let's see here. So one is, what's the approach that what you guys play?
Well, usually, especially on a lot of the classic material, there was, a lot of overdubs, so I think that when the band, either whether it was James and Billy, or then James and I, or then Billy and I, and in this kind of Mach 2, and now we're like at Mach 3, I guess, or who knows, maybe there's like, maybe we're like at Mach 6, you know what I mean, like, but it was always tough. You always had to make compromises in terms of, well, that's really a kind of a harmonized single note lines, but maybe I'll play it with like double stops or octaves or something, or with a harmonizer to try and recreate this. And whereas at least like now, if it's a song, it's classic. Like if Billy is singing, he's usually gonna be playing the primary rhythm part, and if he played obviously a solo on the record, he's gonna play it. And then all the other stuff, James and I are gonna kind of, do all the drop-ins and overdubs. And it's really, it's strange though, because, in a lot of times, it's gotten to be such a, like a streamlined situation, is that we don't even talk about it. We just show up to rehearsal and we just start playing, and like everybody kind of knows, like, oh, that's a good part for James, or that's a good part for Jeff, or that's, I mean, like, and I think that we really value and respect everybody's strengths and weaknesses in the band.
Yeah.
And as players. And so that that we don't really have to talk about it too. It's strange. Like you would think that you'd have to do a lot of talking about it. And I think maybe the very first rehearsals that we did for the Shiny tour, there was a little bit more of, I mean, Billy and I remember we specifically sat down one day at lunch before rehearsals even started, and kind of like sat and listened to every song. And we were like, okay, like, how are we going to do this? And then we kind of mapped out some basic ideas about how to kind of parse out the parts. But after that, I mean, it's really not that difficult. It's usually pretty, it's pretty obvious on like who should do what.
You guys are like the consummate professionals. When I see how much you practice, it blows my mind. How much you practice.
Yeah.
I think like everybody shows up, knows their lines, kind of thing, and
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. We, and it's strange because we used to rehearse for a long time before a tour. Now we just started realizing, like, we really don't need as much time because everybody,
yeah.
I mean, it's more, I mean, you need a certain amount of time because it's not about knowing parts. A lot of bands, you can show up and know your parts. A lot of it is, especially for rock music, and especially if it's harder rock music, like, like there's a certain physicality to the playing that you can only get from playing together. And there's different levels. There's playing in your room at home, and then there's playing in the rehearsal room with the band, and then there's playing on stage. And it's crazy because I can play at home, and I mean, I play if I'm working on something, if it's, picking or something, I'll play like fairly aggressive, or as much as aggressive as I need to get, I think, the sound out of the guitar that I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's always a different level of intensity when you're in rehearsal and you're playing with the whole band, even though we're on in-ears.
Yeah.
And then when you start, so then after like regular rehearsal, it'll be like, wow, at home, some days I'll play guitar 6-8 hours a day, and my hands maybe towards the end of the day start getting sore. But we could do like a 4-hour band rehearsal. Be like, at first, the first couple of days, you're like, gosh, man, my hands are sore.
Yeah.
And then after the first like 2 shows, my hands are just destroyed.
It's
because,
like muscle, right?
Well, I think it's your body, because you don't have the nervous energy
yeah.
and the adrenaline. And
Yeah.
you get a certain adrenaline surge on stage that I think affects your muscles differently. And you're just more jacked up and more amped up. And, so the first week of it, my hands, my right hand, my nails get destroyed because I'm playing like, I'm probably the sound man probably hates it. Drew, my guitar tech, probably, because it's just like banging the guitar out of tune the whole time because you're just like rocking so much. But I try to do that. I try to do that as least, I try to like, okay, don't do that. Actually a good friend of mine, who's a really amazing guitar player, Sean Tubbs. Do you know Sean? He played for a long time with Carrie Underwood. He's and he's lived in Nashville. But back in the day, in the early 90s, he used to work at the Mesa Boogie store.
Cool.
And
everybody's favorite.
I used to go in there and annoy him probably, with like, and I remember, but he would say, because he's a really, really, really great guitar player, very articulate. And, he was like very much like, I don't want to say like, great, amazing rock player, but, he had like, he was kind of coming more from like, kind of like the session guy, studio guy, and he would be like, if you're playing with distortion, if you hit harder, it's really not going to get any louder. After a certain point, you got to hit to a certain degree to get the tone, but you see like the first night of a tour, I'm just like,
right? It's all
because you're just all excited,
Yeah. Well, I always thought about that, when I have an amp at home and I make it sound good for me playing, by myself, and then like you get on stage, it's a totally different thing. So
completely different.
I'm curious, like when you get a new guitar, like how do you know it sounds good? Because I have some guys tell me, oh, I can pick it up and play one chord and I know, or like unplugged, or it depends on when I get on stage for the first time. But like when you get a new guitar, are people telling you it sounds better, or are you noticing, or the sound guy? Or
sometimes it's it is like, sometimes there's a big guitar that I don't think particularly sounds like great to my ears, but the sound man, the sound will be like, look, that guitar sounds amazing. You should use that one on that song. And I'll be like, really? So it is subjective. You know what I mean? And I think that, I think there are certain kind of more concrete details, and that, for me, I don't know about other people, but for me, I was able to really start noticing like what guitars work and what don't, and stuff when, I went to in-ears full time, especially for live situations. For live, it's, because, and especially now with the Pumpkins, we're so dialed in. Like we worked, like I said, that very first tour I think we did 2 months of rehearsal, and it was really a lot of, getting, especially with 3 guitars, 3 guitar sounds that would complement each other, that would create one bigger sound, but then have distinctness in sound and be pleasing to the individual player and stuff. So it's a very kind of controlled environment there. So when you bring in a new guitar into that atmosphere, you can tell almost instantaneously if a guitar is good or not, because a great guitar always sits in a very specific place, like sonically, you know what I mean? And sometimes that's hard to tell when you're playing by yourself, because you'll want like, oh, it sounds so big and warm. But when you're playing with the rock band with 3 guitar players, you're not going to be really hearing that super low stuff. It's like you're a mid-range instrument. So it's like having that kind of very clear defined space
Yeah.
is so key, and sound man love that, because then they know, like, okay, great, this is where Jeff's going to sit, and this is how it sits in relation to Billy's guitar. And and that's a kind of a thing, over time, you and I have kind of worked on together, is that I've been trying to work on guitars that I can play for more songs, that are versatile enough to where I don't have to switch guitars, because I think having that kind of consistency to me is something that I really strive for now, because I think your sound man's going to love you, because they're like, whoa, like, instead of, your sound changing radically for every song because you're switching guitars all the time, they like that kind of consistency night after night is something that is actually a good thing for me as a player, playing on the same neck, knowing how the guitar is going to react, which is essentially, building a relationship with the instrument becomes really key. So even now I've tried to, kind of break it down to where, okay, there's, like with Pumpkins, there's kind of like the Revstar guitars, which are the neck through, are, I don't know if set neck.
They're set neck.
Set neck. Not neck. Yeah,
neck
I knew that was wrong. I was like set neck, and the 24 and 3/4 scale, which is a certain type of sound.
Yeah, and also different woods too, So
So I have,
lower, like deeper, kind of thicker sound than the typical longer scale 25.5-inch with a neck. I think the bolts themselves, personally, I think they kind of lend a type of like bright and springy character to the instrument itself, combined with the types of woods you use.
Sure. So when I first joined the Pumpkins, I was, because Billy usually played a bolt-on type of neck guitar, not always, but in the classic material he was, and then James would play like the humbucker style 24 and 3/4 scale type of guitar. So when I first joined the band, I was very much covering that territory. But now that James is back and he still likes to play those are kind of his primary guitars still, it's actually allowed me to play more what I grew up playing, which is bolt-on neck 25.5-inch scale guitars. And so it's really more like my sound, my comfort space. But like I said, over time, I've been trying to figure out ways, and working with you, to go like, how can we get more out of one design, one guitar, so that even if I switch guitars for maybe for tuning or something, I'm playing the same neck, the same woods, the same pickup configuration. So at least, there's more consistency. So it's kind of trying to find that magic combination of things that work well, and will really give you that type of versatility. Because as you know, it's really there's a tipping point to where you add one too many features, it's just ruins the party. You know what I mean? It's just, you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
Like,
and that's one thing I've learned making guys guitars is, what I like isn't necessarily what everybody wants. And, I'll be all hyped up about a new thing I found out about, and I'm just like, hey, let's try this. And then, artists will be like, oh, cool, yeah, let's try it out. And then they play it a couple of nights and they're like, yeah, it didn't work. So I'm like, okay. But, that's how we learn, and that's how we really, try and provide something that works for everyone. So
sure.
I think that's super duper important. All right. Well, let's see. We got some more questions.
We should do. I can stay a few. I mean, I know we're kind of technically over time. I mean.
Oh yeah. Whenever you got to split.
No, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yeah. So, talking about pet projects. Do you have any personal or pet projects going on?
Kind of you know what? Kind of a what I'm want to do for fun, I think, over the next couple weeks, and somehow just, you know, release on something like Bandcamp or something, which I think is such a great artist-friendly platform. Is I've in doing research for kind of the Hypnosis record and stuff, and I've, you know, I've always been a fan of Eno and Robert Fripp, and especially Robert Fripp's guitar playing. Is, you know, he did that, kind of pioneered that thing he called Frippertronics, which was he used two tape machines to basically do, I wouldn't say it's looping because it's not, you know, it does repeat things, but because of it was done as basically with long tape delay, you know, things repeat, but then they kind of fade away over time, you know, over like maybe, and so it creates, it's more like, I think instead of kind of creating, you know, where modern looping, even though you can take things in and out because there's many sophisticated loopers, usually it's the idea of like, you play something, kind of build something out with, you know, multiple layers, and then you kind of create this kind of bigger picture with layers, where this is, you're doing that, but it's kind of shifting over time. So it's more like you're looking up at the sky, it's like clouds moving through space, you know, so it's kind of just a different, kind of just takes you on a, not one, I would never say one is better than the other, you know, and there's, you know, like I said, there's gray area in every space. And so, you know, nothing I'm trying to say is definitive, but I really enjoy like how it kind of, there's a certain emotional trajectory that you go on because it is shifting, and you kind of have to kind of react in a different way to what's going on as a player, especially if you start improvising over some of the pads and bed of sound that's created. So over the next couple, I kind of want to do like basically like a half hour, 40 minutes of kind of these different recordings I've been doing, and then just release that for fun. So that's kind of like, that's my idea of like a fun project.
Yeah, that's killer. I hear that too. All right, maybe I'll pick like 3 more questions and we'll split. This one's easy. Sure. Mostly electric or acoustic when you practice?
I know that name. Hey, I know that guy. Was from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Always predominantly play electric, and play electric with THR, or as you can see, maybe it's back there. Yeah, like this way, because it's like everything's reversed. I have a THR like basically anywhere I think I might be, I have stashed an amp somewhere because I love those things so much, and they sound so great. Because I like to practice with distortion. Yeah, absolutely. I like to, you know, I like to practice because, and I know a lot of people, and there is a lot of used to sometimes playing with the clean sound. Yeah. To get when you're working on technique type of stuff, and I do, and you know, and but also though, you have to learn how to, if you're playing, especially if you play in a heavy rock band like I do with the Pumpkins, where we're playing with a lot of distortion, you have to get used to knowing how to control the distortion. So when you play lines, like you have to know, make sure you're kind of, you know, you may think like if you play only clean, you may think, oh, I got that line down. And then when you turn on the distortion, you realize, oh my gosh, there's all the string noise that I have to learn how to mute. Like when I make that transition from the G string to the B string, I got to make sure I'm muting with the, you know, the fleshy part of my finger, all these things. So I find practicing with the full on sound, the way to go, because there's a point when you're learning a technique, which is great, but then there's a point where you have to learn to get the sound out of the guitar that you want to hear, and make the tonality of the guitar be what you want to do. And you can only do that if you're playing with, like, especially with distortion, because it's such a, it, like, you know, it makes its presence known. There's no, I mean, it's like, it's everything. You have to know, okay, like, well, I need to have the pick at a certain angle to get the certain tonality that I want. So I find playing with the distortion and learning how to control it at kind of every step of the game very useful.
Yeah, I mean, I always took it from Satriani, where you'd say, like, you play with distortion on stage, practice with distortion, you'll know how to use it, you know?
That's
So
how I, you know what I mean? Yeah.
that's pretty good. Oh, and your friend also asked what went into the color of the guitar. What went into the color was Rafael Barajas, our painter, and like awesome builder. We worked together previously at another company, and when I had the chance to hire him, I had to have him on board. But what goes into it is really bright base coat, then the neon red, clear coat, and just vision buffing. That's what goes into it. All right, next question was, what drew your attention to the Sustainiac pickup, and what was the deciding factor adding it into your rig?
Well, three of my favorite guitar players used it, or a version of, because there's, as we know, there's two different, there's actually what this is, which is the Sustainiac, which is that the company's name too?
Yes, Sustainiac, or Sustainiac is the product.
And then
Maniac Music is the name of the company.
Yeah, and then Fernandez makes the Sustainer, but I don't know if they really make it anymore, because I know
I think they still do. But you know what? I haven't seen one in a minute.
Yeah, no, because I saw that, actually, Steve I was saying that, he's now, because he was previously a Sustainer user, but now I noticed that they've been putting Sustainiacs in his newer guitars, because I don't think they can get the Sustainers like they used to, for whatever. I don't know, but basically, I saw both Steve I and Satriani using the Sustainer, and I was like, and I saw them both live, and I was like, oh, wow, that's really cool, because, you can get feedback-like response at any volume, any point of the stage. And especially now with Pumpkins, we don't have cabinets on stage anymore. So it's really like you can't get any of that natural feedback. And so this really solves for that from. But then over the summer, we were in Europe. I think it was Belgium somewhere, or somewhere. So it was a French-speaking country, not France, so but we played with The Cure. We played with The Cure and Rees Gabrels. So I was standing side watching Rees play, and he had a couple guitars with this Sustainiac. And then I was able to get one of his signature guitars, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. And he warned me, he warned me about it. He said, it's addictive. And that's why, and that's why I only have it on this guitar. In the new guitar, the white guitar that you built, we don't have it in on the new ones, because as much as I love it, it can become a thing that's like, it's like, adding too much hot sauce to your food. You start forgetting what the food actually tastes like. And that was for you, Jack Bates. Because Jack Bates, the bass player of the Pumpkins, he is a hot sauce fanatic. I mean, he could, like, you and I talking about guitars, he can talk about hot sauce, like, and
right. Let's do it.
You should have him on. He'll sit there and he'll tell you, he'll school you on every aspect of what goes into making a hot sauce. He can pretty much like pick up a bottle of any type of hot sauce, because now it's like, hot sauce is like microbrews.
Yeah.
There's a zillion companies out there making their own hot sauce. He can just kind of look at the color and go, this is garbage.
Oh, yeah.
He can just look at
Honestly, my favorite is the Tabasco Chipotle one. It's very good.
He's probably going berserk right now. He's so happy. He just made his night. He's got, I think, the Tabasco company, because he tweeted one time about not being able to get something in the UK, and they actually sent him some stuff.
Way.
Yeah. So
that's killer. wouldn't mind a Tabasco endorsement, right? Let's see. Sign Joe 13 would look really good in shocking green too. Would that vibe with you and with you to Jeff? Well, we have
absolutely, yes,
two more
but
coming, and one of them is kind of a green color.
It is. We didn't do the shocking green. We went more of a like it was, it was the color of a VW car I saw, and I was like, that's a cool color. Which is I don't know what the
I'm a big VW dork.
Yeah. So I knew you. So I said, this is perfect, and so we were able to basically get
the in like 20 minutes. It was easy. The same guy asked if George Lynch is a big influence on you.
Huge. I mean, big fan of George. I actually had the honor to play with him a couple times.
Oh, cool.
He played with the Pumpkins in 2008, and we actually had him on stage for a few songs. And
cool.
Yeah, he's just a great guy, great musician, complete innovator. Still pushing himself in his playing. Like, I mean, he's he's just one of a kind, and just a mean player. And you know what I mean? Like, his sound is his attack, like his note choice is just and it's the benchmark of any great guitar player, right? Within 3 notes, you're like George Lynch. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Right? It's like
I know, it just
Stevie Ray, George Lynch, or
Eddie Van Halen. You know what I mean? It's like
Junior or whatever. Like guys, like you could hear a few notes, and I hear it on Joe Rogan all the time because I put in my podcast while I'm working. And he always says, Gary Clark Jr., you could totally know what that guy sounds like from a distance.
It's true.
I think it goes for Pumpkins too, and it goes for you guys. It's like you have a sound of a generation, and
sure.
it's hard to beat.
No, it's funny because you mentioned that, and a lot of it, you think as much as we obsess, over the woods, the pickups, as from having great guitar players come into your shop, they always sound the same no matter what they're playing.
Well, yeah,
you know what I mean? It's really funny. Right? I mean, people because I've seen, like, whether it was George Lynch, I get to play with someone like a great guitar player like Billy Corgan. You know what I mean? To where people,
right?
It's people obsess about like, oh, what fuzz pedal, the guitar, the pickup, the amp, and all that stuff. Of course, it matters.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, like, when he plays through, like, whatever amp he's playing through, and he's playing with a lot of distortion, it sounds pretty much the same because it's about the way he hits the strings with his right hand, the way he shakes the strings with his left hand, and it's not so much, like I said, that like the pedals and the amps and the guitars and the woods are like, I mean, it's a significant portion, but it's maybe like 20%. The 80% really is the other stuff.
Pyramid, right? It's like
I know.
What you got to do is, like, the very top part of the food pyramid is all your gear, and then the rest of it is practice. I tell everybody I meet, I just say, listen, the guitar doesn't sound like anything. The best sounding thing you can do to your guitar is practice.
Well, but it is a symbiotic relationship in that if you don't have an instrument as a player that inspires you, you don't play the way you want to play. So it is an absolutely necessary part of the recipe, but it's not like, as I mean, I've read so many interviews with people who have been like, oh, I got to play Eddie Van Halen's guitar rig, and I thought, like, I plugged in and it sounded nothing like Eddie, like what I hear Eddie Van Halen sounding like, which or any of those. It's just
him, man.
Yeah.
I think that we should just say Bandcamp right now is supporting by giving all artists their rights, their due, by giving their proceeds to the artist. So one thing I want to suggest to everyone is go and support Jeff, support Night Dreamer, support Smashing Pumpkins. And, when you download their music, help them out by, going to Bandcamp and help out your favorite artists. That way, a lot of artists are out there, and can't play live right now, and it goes a really far distance, to help them. So I definitely suggest everybody go out there and support your favorite musician. And I guess I would end with one question. If you can give me like one thing where, what's a lesson you learned on the road that's helping you right now while you're, stuck at home a little bit?
In the I think this is a line for because no matter how serious you want to take yourself, whatever, I think there's like Nigel Tufnell somewhere in Spinal Tap says, and I think it's the manager actually is in the topsy-turvy world of rock and roll. But so that's going to start in the topsy-turvy world of rock and roll. Actually, the best piece of advice that I ever got 15 years ago or so when I first joined the Smashing Pumpkins is kind of was more than the tour manager. He kind of was, he'd kind of worked very closely with the band. And he told me, he said, is right when the rehearsals were first starting, when I was just kind of like just joined the band, and he gave me the pull aside and he said, don't let the highs get too high and don't let the lows get too low. And you think like that's like such an obvious statement, but it really is the truth in that, you can't get too worked up within a certain moment. You know what I mean? In that by letting environment, I think, a more nuanced way to say it then is don't let what's going on around you completely influence your state of being. You need to kind of be in control or be aware of kind of where you want to be, and don't let that too much influence kind of the trajectory you're on. And I think that's how I would kind of say that would be layer 2 of that statement. But it really is the best advice. And I think even for now is all of us are here in this situation, and some days we find great joy and beauty in being able to just go like, wow, I haven't had time to read this book, or get out Ted Green's Chord Chemistry and try to find some new voicings, right? You know what I mean? Now we have no excuses, but so I think, and then so that's great, but then also there's, some bad stuff going on, and, but, you can't, it's very easy to get into that rabbit hole. So I think that, from learning in the music industry, I've been able to find like, because the one thing the music industry is it's really tough, no matter what part of it you're at. I know it never gets easier.
Yeah.
It never gets, and, that kind of massive shift in dynamics between a euphoric high to like a really depressing low can happen within the matter of minutes, no matter what stage you're at. Especially, and if your head's not in the right place, like just think you can go from playing, you're on stage in front of 15,000 people in an arena, it's crazy, loud, you're rocking, and then you get off stage, get in the van, go back to the hotel, and you're by yourself.
Yeah, that's a big,
which can be really hard. Really hard, and and I could start understanding why certain musicians would have trouble with that after a while. And you look to certain things. So I think, like I said, like again, my biggest lesson is you got to learn how to kind of stay up the middle and enjoy the moment for sure, but don't get too caught up in like, wow, I was just playing in front of all these people. It's great, but again, what can happen right afterwards can change that. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, you're one of the best guys to do it. I think.
No, I don't know about that.
You're so down to earth, and you really, you treat everything super professionally. So all I can say is thank you, and say, I'm sure all the fans say thank you for giving us, something fun to talk about guitars, and we're having like, your guitar is brightening up the day.
Absolutely, literally, right? I know. No,
Yeah.
I want to say thank you to you, Pat, for inviting me to do this. I mean, it's an honor. Like I said, the Yamaha family has been so great to me and the band, but me in particular, you've always treated me with respect, and made these crazy things come into fruition, and I really value that, and it's just been a wonderful time, so I'm really thankful.
Yeah, and we're thankful for you guys too. I mean, you guys have been great to us, and it's just been a really great collaboration, really. And you're part of our family, so
Thank you.
like all family, we love you guys, and we love our fans of Yamaha and fans of the Pumpkins, right? So, and Night Dreamer, and all your projects. So thank you everybody for joining us, and hopefully we'll be back again, and we'll be doing more interviews like this. And have a good one, guys.
Well,
Peace.
thank you. Bye, everybody. Yep.